Why are we tired of talking about surface level recovery?
Brannon, what's going on, man?
You know, just I don't know. Life's just the same old, same old. What about for you?
You just got done with Freedom Day, man. Like same
Yeah,
old, same old.
yeah. My daughter had a murder mystery party with like 15 kids came over. But it's a dinner party, so I got to be the chef, and my other kids were the waiters. Yeah, it was a blast.
Were you the murderer?
No, I wasn't. I was not. Thank goodness. Yeah, it was fun. My daughter's into theater and stuff, so you should see theater kids do a murder mystery party. They
Oh,
know how
I,
to do it.
I bet that did they come all with costumes and
Oh
everything?
yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, and they're not afraid to get into it.
It reminds me of a couple of years ago at a family reunion. You know Chase Brannon,
Oh
of
yeah.
course. He wrote his own murder mystery and then he brought all the costumes and he made all of us like play the part that he wrote for us. And it was like all this like he made me be Tea Bags the Time Bomb and I was a pro wrestler that looked like Hulk Hogan. So I had a big mustache and a Speedo and uh and I had to act like like doing like those wrestling soliloquies every time I spoke.
I think you just got yourself a new nickname, Teabag the Time Bomb
So Chase just basically
with the
wrote
Fu
this thing.
Manchu.
He wrote this thing just so he could laugh at all of us, like play the part that he wrote for us.
Yeah, how did
So
how did he actually like get you guys to do that? Hey, for next family party, I'm gonna do that. So expect me to get your costume. You got to do it.
yeah, that
Can you
was.
imagine what I would have you wearing?
I'd I think I'd get sick and not show up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be fun. Get Big Z and Wiz in a costume.
The whole family out there playing the part, man. And the thing about those things is that the more you get into it, the more fun it is for everybody.
Oh, if you don't get into it, it's not fun.
It's-
It's it's horrible.
yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, you got to either go all in or not.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, just a reminder, we decided
Well,
today.
you just decided today.
We
Brandon just
decided
decided our last
just
episode.
because I want some people to come to our Rising Sun. It's coming up. So we'd love to have you come to Rising Sun. It's the last weekend of September. It is like one of the most favorite things that we do, and probably one of the most impactful things that we do. And so, if you're a man and you're just wanting more answers in life, trying to figure out your purpose, trying to work on your healthy masculinity, to feel confident in yourself, this retreat is for you. It is deeper recovery work, and we would love to have you. So, if you come on and be a guest or sign up to be a guest before my birthday, July 31st, you'll go in a drawing to attend Rising Sun for free. So, we'd love to have you on as a guest. We'd also just love to have you
If you're interested in
at
looking
Rising
at the
Sun.
retreat, risingsun.org, but otherwise, sign up to come and be a guest and talk with Brandon and I, and we'll throw your name in the hat for drawing, and we'll draw one of you guys to come join
And
us.
reserve your spot. It does fill up. So if you pay for it and then you win the drawing, we'll refund you. So go sign up, get your spot, and get in the drawing. That would be awesome. So we would love to have you.
Great. Yeah, Brandon, let's jump into it. Both of us, we actually had this discussion a little while ago, and we both said, you know what? There's a whole lot of principles of recovery that lots of people like to hear about and talk about all the time, which relate to recovery. And both of us kind of looked at each other and we kind of got this like fatigued look on our face of like, and
Yeah.
we thought, man, like why do we dread having to talk about recovery? And then the further we discussed, we talked a little bit about it's not necessarily talking about recovery that we dread. It's the energy that comes with only focusing on surface level recovery that gets kind of fatiguing and tiring. Not because the principles are wrong, but because the energy that people ask the questions from are they're sometimes missing the boat.
It's the spinning of the wheels, Tyler. So I think what burns me out and makes it really difficult is when like people don't understand or see what what actual recovery is, and they won't see it until they're ready to see it. And so they'll come in with pain points, with problems, and they'll be trying to fix those pain points, and they want answers to fix those pain points, and there are actual answers to like address those things, but it doesn't address the deeper issue. And so long term it's not going to actually solve the problem. So I can give you some examples, Tyler, if you want.
Go for it.
And you know these like the back of your hand. I mean, you've heard them a million times, but one thing is sobriety. Like we've talked a lot about sobriety and how sobriety is not recovery,
It is
but
important,
it is
but it's
important.
not recovery.
But you go back and listen to our episodes, Tyler. How often do we have to overcome dealing with focusing on sobriety as the thing that is recovery? Like we hear it all the time. And sometimes even from people who understand that like we don't like see sobriety and recovery as the same things, but they still don't understand. They still don't understand what actual recovery is. So that's an example that we get all the time is
Yeah.
sobriety,
Here's
right?
here's another one that goes along with that, Brannon. It's a little bit broader than sobriety, but people come in all the time and they say, I've got this problem with whatever, alcohol or porn or something else. I just need a few tools and skills and strategy to be able to stop that, and then just give me the formula that ends this behavior, and then I'll be all better. And then
Yeah.
sometimes they even start doing the right things. They start doing their daily charge. They start setting up some good lines of defense. They start to build a team. They start practicing their mindfulness. And then when they start to gain a little bit of traction towards that end, which is the sobriety end, then they let go of all of the things that got them there. They let go of the daily charge and the lines of
Yep.
defense, and they don't keep nurturing their relationships. And then they sit and they wonder like, I thought I fixed this. And
Yes.
and and in a certain sense, they're focusing on a fixed mindset of recovery rather than learning to adopt the growth mindset of a healthy life.
Yes. That's it. And it sets them up. It sets them up for not having it last long term. Um, okay, I got another one. Something we hear over and over. Like, when is my partner going to like want to be close to me again? Or how do I rebuild trust with them? Or these are all good questions, all great
Great
stuff.
questions.
Um, the problem is a lot of times is they come back to the sobriety thing, or they come back to the I'm following the checklist of the things I should do in order for them to like me again. Why aren't they? I'm showing up weak. I don't have honest boundaries. I don't trust myself, but I'm showing up weak in order to try to rebuild trust with them. Why is that not working? I'm so frustrated. Do we not hear that all the time?
All the time. And in fact, you hear the frustration because there's a lot of times there's exasperation and tiredness because I am actually putting in a ton of work towards what I think is the outcome that I want. And yet,
They are willing to do the work.
that's right. They're willing to do the work, but they're doing the work. And this is the hard part, Brandon. And I think this is maybe part of why we wanted to have this discussion today is when you look at the process of a recovery, most of us, we like to be able to grab an instrument or something that gives us the pathway, the recipe towards that recovery, right? So it's like, if you do this and then 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 you do this, you'll be all better. And the truth is that all of those principles, all of those tools, all those skills that you can go and glean out of any type of a program, they're really valuable. But they're only valuable if you also pair that with, and this is the less tangible part, if you pair that with a mindset and a heart or an energy that moves towards real change rather than trying to rely on the tool to do the fixing in a certain sense. So what do I mean by that? Um, if I'm doing all of those things that you just said, Brannon, in order to rebuild trust with my partner so that my partner will like me again, I've already kind of missed the boat because now I'm doing the recipe. It's a form of denial called compliance, where I'm doing all of the things I'm supposed to, but my heart isn't fully engaged. Or my
Mhm.
heart's engaged for a selfish purpose rather than for, the greater good kind of idea.
Yeah. Let me see if I can word this exactly what you just said in a different way. If I'm acting out because I have a lot of shame, and so I'm soothing that shame, I'm finding false sense of connection, those type of things. And then I get busted or I get tired of that. And so then I use that shame in order to fuel my recovery. So now I'm using shame to try to be good enough, to work my way through the 12 steps, to show everybody that I'm doing good now, and I'm using shame to fuel that. Guess what? The same problem's still there. It's what's the problem?
The problem the is the shame and the lack of shame resiliency rather than the acting out itself.
So my behaviors have changed drastically. In fact, they're like opposite now. Like I am addicted to 12-step meetings. I go all the time because I got to show my sponsor, my wife, and everybody how good I am and look at me. But how I resonate is the same. Whether I was hiding with the shame about my addiction or whether I'm overcompensating, I still resonate the same with that shame. And just like you said, Tyler, it's a change of heart. It's a shift in um, like understanding yourself and knowing yourself, and it's a shift in the energy and the emotion that is behind why you do what you do. It's the whole be do have principle. And so a lot of times, who we talk to, clients, guests, whomever it is, they come in and they still are in those states of force, control, shame, wanting certain outcomes. Now, they want those outcomes for good reasons, but what's underneath it is still that. And if we don't address that, then actual recovery will never happen.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's hard to connect the dots because the pain point is the fruit of the plant. It's the behavior that's like, well, I just blew up my marriage, or man, I can't stop doing this thing. And that's the thing that's like manifesting in our lives, but we don't realize that's actually just a non-effective solution to the deeper problems. And then when I come into like a group or something and I feel like I got to sit around, go around the room and say, hey guys, I touched my penis 4 times this week. Please, everyone, tell me how bad I am. We,
Yeah.
we we call that humility when in reality that's shame manifesting
Wallowing.
itself on top of itself. And so that energy shift is the thing that we're really trying to work towards. And sometimes people will almost, they don't, they almost can't connect the dots that they come in and they just report it on themselves that they just relapsed. And then the discussion goes into a different topic of their emotional coping or what was underneath it emotionally or what's behind it or what's the core belief that's driving all of this. And they're like, why are we having this discussion? I just want help stopping this behavior. And they haven't quite fully connected the dots yet that these things are all strung together. And unless we address the roots and the core, the fruit will just it'll be a different version of the same fruit. It'll be a different color of the same fruit. So instead of porn, it'll now become spending money, or instead of spending money, it'll become video games, or instead of video games, it'll become social media or whatever else. Because I haven't really addressed what is it about the way I see myself in my life that makes it so intolerable that I have to disappear. And
Yeah.
that's a scary proposition, but passing through that process is part of what starts to shift the energy. So then I come out on the other side with a new set of beliefs where I start to say, huh, like looking at porn really doesn't serve who I am. Like it doesn't actually help me with the life that I know I was designed to live. So I'm going to do like all the stuff that the doing, there's nothing wrong with the doing. It's the energy with which it's done. So now I want to set my lines of defense. I want to do my daily charge because that's leading me into the life that I believe I'm designed for.
Yeah.
And that energy shift, all of a sudden, recovery becomes. If people like balk at this all the time, like, how long is my recovery going to last? And I used to just flat out say the rest of your life, and then they'd look at you like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can do recovery the rest of my life. And it's like you and I have different definitions of recovery. Because to me, recovery is an acceptance of my goodness and my possibilities and the ability to grow until I die. Like
Yeah.
who wouldn't want to be in recovery? But most people look at recovery and they're like, I've got to run away from this bad behavior that's been chasing me my whole life, and I've just got to run from that the rest of my life.
The- Tyler, a lot of different stories are coming up. I think of um, the guy when I was years ago when I was doing Lifestar, and his bishop said to him, "Once you get done with the workbooks, you can go back to the temple." And so for him, his recovery meant once he gets done with the workbooks.
Yeah.
And so in group, like, guess what? Every
He's
week,
got two assignments ready to
oh
go.
my gosh, he was just pumping through them, just like, come on, come on. He went through like 9 workbooks that usually take a year and a half in like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And hey, you got through the workbooks. I guess that's
It's like
recovery, right? Like, yay.
done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think of the guy. Here's another one that we see all the time. The guy who's hiding things that he's doing, hiding them from a spouse, gets busted, and he's told that he needs to be an honest man. And so then he goes into anxiety and over discloses everything he possibly can because now he's going to be an honest man, and he wants to make sure that he's not doing anything bad, so he's being an honest person. And to his spouse, he's over disclosing things where it's just like there's just no safety there at all. And you look at this and you're like, well, there was no safety when he was acting out behind the scenes. So wouldn't the answer to that being like over, out there with everything that you possibly can be? What's the issue?
The issue is the energy and the reason for the instant over honesty. It's like
He's still wallowing in fear and shame.
it's fear and shame. So the energy that we're talking about is the difference between fear, force, coercion, like versus love, possibility, real accountability, real humility. Um, those two energies are so different. And now it's hard because if you're in an addiction, it's likely that you're already used to having the default currency of your life be shame. And what shame is this teeter-totter of control and release. So you control, control, control. I got to be perfect. I'm going to criticize myself into being a better person. And then when life piles up to where I can't handle it anymore, then I release. Oh well, what the hell? Boom, let it all go. But then I feel bad about myself. So what do? I retighten it all up, and I'm never going to let anybody know, but I'm going to be perfect again. Control, 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 coercion, coercion, self-criticism, release.
Yep.
And that is the part that has to be worked on and broken. That's the part that has to be shifted inside the cycle if you want long-term success.
Tyler, the only way to shift it though is through experience. Like you always talk about an emotionally corrective experience. That's the only way to shift these things. So a lot of times what happens is somebody's feeling shame, fear, shame, and this shame and cycle with release is going on, and they come to therapy or they start working these workbooks or go to 12 step or whatever, and they think like, okay, like this is going to cure me, everything's going to change. But if you sit in that 12 step meeting and your shame is running the show in that 12 step meeting, nothing changes. If and so like let me give an example here. If I had trauma as a child, and let's say I had some abandonment or some rejection, and in that abandonment or rejection, my natural reaction with my ego was to like be extra kind and nice and make sure I never make waves with people because I took on a belief that was people will reject me unless I'm really nice. Okay. So now fast forward into adulthood, here I am, and I'm in therapy, and my therapist is like, "Hey, stop touching your penis. Like, knock that off. Call your sponsor. Here's all your tools to not do that. Blah 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 blah." Well, okay, so I stopped doing that because I want to be nice to my wife and I want to like show her that I'm good, and so she won't reject me, right? What I actually need to do is face the actual demon. I need to deal with the trauma and the beliefs, and I need to practice some real courage. Courage is the key to shifting the way you resonate. Some real courage to actually shift out of that. So
Mm.
if I look at this and I'm like, okay, I got to be Mr. Nice Guy to be loved. Maybe the answer is to actually be empowered and honest, even if people don't like it. That could be the most therapeutic thing that I could do for myself. Not go out and be mean to people, but honest, even if people don't like it. Right.
Yeah,
Um,
I just had an example of this a couple of weeks ago, Brannon, in my office. I said some things to a client a few weeks ago, and this client she's so agreeable. She hates conflict. She hates like the fear that conflict is going to lead to her rejection, to judgment, whatever. And I said some things in a session that she didn't agree with and she actually took offense to. 3 weeks later, she comes back into my office last week and she's like, I am scared to death to do this, but I need to confront you about some of the things that you said.
Excellent.
And then she like said everything that was, the problem with what I had shared, which some of it was probably true and some of it I didn't fully agree with. But then what did I do? I was like more thrilled that she stepped
Yeah,
into the discomfort of the conflict than resolving the conflict itself. It was like,
absolutely.
hallelujah. Like this is the biggest step you've ever taken in treatment right now because
Yes.
you found a voice, you set a boundary, you came and talked to somebody who you respect
With
and you're worried
authority.
about getting rejected by and someone who has authority in a certain sense and you still had a voice.
Yep.
That's freaking awesome.
Yep.
Like that was her stepping through the fear with courage directly in opposition to her false core belief. And then
Yep.
she had an emotional experience, an emotionally corrective experience, where instead of me being like, well, you're not only are you wrong, but I can't meet with you ever again. Like,
Rejection.
yeah.
You confronted me. I'm going to reject you. Yeah.
Instead of that, she was like met with like, wow, that took a ton of courage. Thanks for bringing that up. And you know
Yep.
what? There's probably some truth in what you said. Let's explore that.
Yep.
And it doesn't even matter if we find the solution. What she's now experiencing is I didn't get rejected and I can have a voice. Like, whoa, that's possible. That's an emotional thing that's happening that's going to set in much deeper than the rational mindful thing.
Yep. I think about Tyler the thing we always say to people of like when your spouse is triggered or sad or whatever, um, you think about a person with trauma that says, maybe it's mother wounds or whatever, but trauma that says, I, I need those closest to me to accept me and love me and think that I'm good. I need them to do that. And versus, a guy who's trying to rebuild trust and he's like, my wife is triggered, and you know what? I'm gonna go step into that trigger with her. I'm gonna actually explore it. I'm gonna empathize. I'm gonna listen. That right there is opposite action to the faulty core belief. That right there is an experience that will teach him that he's strong enough, and that he is not what, like, she does not define him. And so if he has those experiences and he has them consistently, it actually starts to rewrite the story of what his shame is saying. It starts to desensitize the shame and changes the way that he resonates. Um, so instead of just showing up as Mr. Nice Guy or running and hiding, actually learning how to sit in that, right? So that's just another example. Courage is the key. Vulnerability is the key. Um, Real authenticity in who you actually are. Now, that's easy for us to say, but there's all kinds of protective parts or faulty core beliefs or your ego working extremely hard for you not to practice that courage, not to actually create these shifts. And so then you just stay stuck in things. And this is why we get burned out, because people come lay on our table They actually, in many ways, Tyler, ask us to like stay right where they're at and help support them and reinforce their stuckness, right? And so we get burned out of like, we are not doing that. Like, people will come on our show, Tyler, and they'll have a question and they'll leave the show like, wow, we went somewhere completely different than what I expected. And there's a reason for that, right, Tyler?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I'm thinking, Brannon, as you're talking, just a little behind the scenes for people listening, one of the most impassioned conversations I've had with you recently, you said with just like pretty much every fiber of your being, we were in a discussion about like how we approach things, how we try to help our clients, where we want to be going. And in essence, what you said to me, you probably used slightly different language, but you said, I refuse to sign off on trying to fuel people through shame, no matter what that is. And you have almost such a repulsion to that now that it's like, whoa, you're kind of
Yeah,
like, no shame, no matter what. Like, because we've lived in such a world for so long where even the way that we were trained, it was kind of originally almost like a shame driven kind of recovery plan.
absolutely.
And I think what we've realized over the years is, and there's still some middle ground. There's a difference between accountability and using shame for that accountability, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think take someone who comes in. Let's say someone comes in, Tyler, and they want to be sober. And let's say in group that week, we're talking about relapse prevention tools, right? And so it's like, does that make relapse prevention tools bad?
No, you need them. They're great.
No, right? That guy who's trying to be sober is going to cling to that and be like, hey, I'm going to try this and I'm going to do this and these mindfulness tools, that's all good. That's fine. The problem is when we get stuck right there. And that's where it's like, okay, now I have what I can do in order to be good enough. Well, the work that needs to be done is for you to already know that you're good enough. Like that, regardless of your relapse prevention tools or not, like that, we want you to be sober. So sobriety is great, it's wonderful. But if you're using sobriety to answer that question, it's a problem.
Yeah. we, we used to do we used to do a what we called a foundations course for people coming into our office, and we'd have them sign up as couples for foundations of recovery. And they'd ask what's going to be in there, and we'd reference, we're going to teach you a toolbox for managing emotions, for sobriety, and then we get into the other things: mindfulness, shame resilience, understanding trauma, understanding the dance that you get in relationally. What's the one week that people always wanted?
Yeah. Well, relapse prevention tools.
They want the
Yeah.
relapse prevention tools.
Yeah.
And you and I are sitting there going like, that is those are important. That is the least important of all the content we're going to cover in all
Yeah.
6 weeks.
Yep.
And if you will soak in all of this other stuff, the relapse prevention tools will actually be amplified and will work better.
It naturally starts to happen.
Yeah.
And Tyler, Reclaim Your Heart is our program that is exactly what we're talking about. It's real recovery, it's deep work, it's experiential. And there's a reason why we've built this program this way. Do we have a relapse prevention tools section in there?
We teach some tools right at the beginning.
Right. But is it relapse prevention?
It's emotional coping.
Yeah, I mean, we teach some tools, but no, we don't focus on this stuff where people stay stuck. But we will push you to have these emotionally corrective experiences that will shift everything for you. Um, I think about, and I'll just say it, like Doug Weiss's whole thing where he has people polygraph every 6 months for the rest of their life or whatever. Like to me, that is not recovery. Like that's not it. Like if you have to polygraph 5 years into your marriage, then you still don't have trust, right?
Right.
So that's an example of focusing on like this surface level BS and not actually getting anywhere with the deeper work to actually create the shifts that you need to create so that you can actually create recovery both within yourself and within a relationship.
It's the heart of the matter again. We keep coming back to that.
Yeah, the heart of the matter, the healing the deepest wounds.
You know, as I've seen this happen a lot. You know, let's just take in group. This is a common thing. We have, you know, the work that some of the people do. One of those things that I've had done in the past is, you know, let's somebody will do like their whole history of different forms of acting out. And then as part of that, that's a daunting task in and of itself because you have to have something on a piece of paper staring back at you that's saying, "Hey, this is my body of work."
Yeah.
Right. And then to make it even harder, here's the courage. Hey, why don't you bring that to group and let's go through that this week? And then they come in and they're like, "Oh my gosh, if I actually do this, like I'm probably going to have my whole group hate me. They're going to probably tell me never to come back again. Everyone's going to like judge me completely." And then they share and they get halfway through the sharing and all of a sudden you can feel it. And this is it, Brannon. Like the room becomes a sacred place.
Yeah.
You can feel this like almost like reverence and silence setting in. And then by the time the guy gets done sharing that whole history, there's two guys standing up to give him a hug, one of them through their own tears. There's three other guys going like, "Oh my gosh, I know you better now and I love you even more now. I want to fight for you even more now." And he's over here going like, "What? I've never experienced the fact that I'm being loved and accepted right in this moment when I just shared the things that make me unlovable." And that shift, that one experience is worth far more than 10 weeks of relapse prevention tools, not because the tools aren't good, but because those things will, they almost like lay the band-aid over the top of the actual work that has to
Yes.
happen.
Yes. It's a good
And
way to
and
put
if
it.
you do the work first and then be developing the tools, do them both at the same time, now you have something that can be a beautiful, sustainable life full of possibilities, which happens to be called recovery.
Yeah, that's recovery. That's awesome. That's well put. Tyler, I think of the really out of shape guy who has been fat his whole life and made fun of, and comes to a retreat or whatever, starts climbing a mountain and is the last guy, just and so all the other guys run back down that mountain and they cheer him on and they help him, and he gets to the summit, he gets to the top of the mountain. What's that going to be like for that guy?
Dude, he just,
What is that like for that guy? We've seen this.
yeah, dude. Well, number one, he's in physical pain,
He's
but
in a ton of
he's
pain.
in, he's in a ton of pain, but he's been loved, he's been supported, and what he just did, this actually happened at our last women's retreat. There was a woman who was really, really worried about one of the activities we were going to do because she didn't think she was in physical shape enough to do it. And it ended up being, I think about a 4 mile kind of hike through the desert of southern Utah. And she went on that full hike believing that she might die on the trail because she didn't think she could actually do it. And then there were times on the way out where we had to stop and take a breath and try to find what little shade we could. And yet, over the course of the time when she got out, something inside of her just learned, I am far more capable than I thought I was.
I- yeah.
And that translated now into her life where she came home and she'd been telling herself she couldn't do anything. She came home and all of a sudden she started setting some different boundaries in her relationship. She signed herself up for graduate school. She's now almost done with her master's degree.
That's awesome.
Like, like something shifted inside of her because she did something that she didn't think was possible and she had the support of those around her to love her through it, confronting her shame.
She had witnesses right in her shame
And now she can step into
while she
courage in other
faced it.
parts of her life
Yeah.
because she
Yeah.
sees the benefit of it.
Right.
Right.
Right. And it really does translate. In recovery, both men and women, when they work recovery, they've experienced some of these things. They've faced their shame in all kinds of different ways. We could go on and on, Tyler. But there's a groundedness and a peace and a acceptance to them. They realize they're gonna screw up. They're not perfect, but they can navigate life so much better. They live in that growth mindset. They're not trying to manipulate things so that they can get love. They know they're loved, because they've practiced that vulnerability and that courage to actually feel it and know that they're loved. and it takes the desire for addiction away.
Yeah.
Um, and so,
But
hey,
Brandon, question
yeah,
on this. Um, just to what you were saying earlier, if you had to choose, you are married to a partner who's working recovery, and they keep a calendar of sobriety up right above you guys' bed, and they do a 6 months, every 6 months polygraph, and they've come back as telling the truth, and the calendar has stayed blank for the last 3 years. Would you rather be with that person, or would you be with the person who you were just talking about that's you can feel is living from a growth mindset?
what's interesting, Tyler, is I would rather be with the person setting up the calendar if I was a person full of fear and anxiety and I wanted to stay stuck in that fear and that anxiety. A healthy person would threaten the way I'm resonating. But if I want a healthy partnership, if I want a deep connection, if I want real intimacy, then I want that partner who is courageous, who is honest, who is grounded, who's at peace within themselves. I would rather have that partner, even if they were relapsing every so often, but they probably wouldn't be. I'd still rather have that partner, because just you would feel from them that they know them and they love themselves. So
And then the work is authentic, whatever
the
the work
work
is that
is
they're doing.
not fear based.
Yeah.
Tyler, with this discussion, if people want to, or if you're signing up to be a guest and you want to talk about like our best relapse prevention tool, please sign up. We'd love to have that talk with you.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah, if you want to talk about, how to like get your spouse, all the right things to do to get your spouse to love you, like sign up. Like that's fine, but fair warning, like we'll probably take you a little bit deeper. We'll probably examine some of those wounds. We'll probably understand why you're showing up in your shame screens, and get to some acts of courage that you can actually do to rewrite the story on those shame screens, and create some shifts in your life. Um, I'm burned out with it, Tyler, because I want people to progress. I want people to find actual healing, and you and I both know we could build massive businesses on this surface level stuff, right?
Yeah, because that's the pain point that's being spoken
That's the
to
pain point.
instantly. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. It's just
So
that the process seems to run quite a bit deeper than that.
we want real recovery. So
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, Brannon, like I feel like I have the absolute best job in the world because I get to witness people actually step in with real courage on a regular basis, and I get to see the fruits that come from real courage, real vulnerability, shared with the right people in the right settings. And you can't think your way out of an emotionally developed belief. You have to feel your way out into a new thinking belief.
yeah, yeah,
And we get to witness that every single day. And it's like, not only do we get to witness it, but once in a while, people think that we actually helped them do it all.
yeah,
When in reality, something bigger is working for them.
yep,
And when they start to be willing to allow their hearts to connect to everything else in them again, that's really where the big changes start to happen.
yep, yep. Good stuff, Tyler. Thank you for this discussion, and I'm just glad I have a brother and a partner on board that sees it the same way. We wouldn't be doing this for so long together like this if philosophically we didn't align in terms of wanting this deeper recovery for people. So I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for all of the clients and people that I've worked with, because I agree it's the best job in the world.
Man, we get a front row seat to like the best thing in the world, which is real people in a real arena facing their biggest fears and overcoming them through
And
courage.
shifting.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you guys. If this is beneficial, please like, subscribe, write reviews, share with your friends, and